Welcome to another episode of Faith Focus, where we explore the richness of the Catholic faith and how it intersects with our daily lives. I'm your host, Daniela Beasant, and today we're going to tackle a challenging topic. We're addressing a specific trope that I often hear about the Bible, and that is that some people claim that it promotes bad behavior, like slavery, for example. We're also going to delve into the value of the Old Testament as a historical account, full of life wisdom, and discuss the importance of studying history to learn from past mistakes. So one common criticism of the Bible, especially from those that oppose its teachings, is that it promotes behaviors we find reprehensible today. However, it's crucial to understand the context in which these texts were written. The Bible, particularly in the Old Testament, is a historical record of human history, and it captures the often brutal realities of ancient times. That doesn't mean that the Bible condones these actions, but it documents them. Because by examining these accounts, we can gain valuable insights into human nature and the consequences of certain behaviors. Studying history, including the difficult passages in the Bible, helps us to prevent the repetition of past mistakes. It allows us to see the progression of moral understanding and how far we've come. The Bible unpacks the human condition and addresses issues that everyone faces in life. From family dynamics to personal struggles, these stories provide timeless insights. And another important thing to remember, and I'm not claiming this enlightenment on my own, I saw somebody mention this in an interview where they said the important thing about reading the Bible is not to look for yourself in it. Look for God in the Bible. What's God trying to tell you through these stories? It's not about you, right? It's about mankind. It's about God. Learn about both of those things through the Bible, and indirectly you will learn about yourself. Or you'll take lessons you can apply for yourself. So here's one powerful example in the Bible of how rich and how complex and how much there is to unpack in even the shortest stories mentioned in the Bible. So we're going to look at the story of Absalom, the son of David. You'll find that in 2 Samuel, chapters 13 to 18. This story is rich with lessons about familial betrayal, the consequences of rebellion, and the complexities of forgiveness and justice. It's also gonna, that story is a dichotomy in this, or actually it has several dichotomies in it, where, it shows you the bad that can come from good and the good that can come from bad. So really, that's a story that could be unpacked for months if you really wanted to. We're going to aim to do this, in 10 or 15 minutes. So Absalom's story begins with a tragic incident involving his sister Tamar and their half-brother Amnon. So Amnon assaulted Tamar in a disgusting, vile way, and David's subsequent inaction creates a rift in the family. So how often does this play out in modern day families, right? Where one son or one child disagrees with the decision that's taken in regards to other kids, and sometimes the kids will decide, well, dad's not doing a good enough job, so I'm going to step in. So that's what happened there. So Absalom takes matters into his own hands, and he ends up killing his half-brother. And his resentment of David grows so profound that he ends up rebelling against his dad. Now, the thing is that Absalom, when he got getting mad, he was justified in his anger. And maybe even justified in his resentment of David. And yet, that rebellion led Absalom to becoming a bitter, deceitful, hateful person. And that rebellion of his led to not only a civil war, but ultimately to his own death. So just the first nugget we take from that story is that even righteous anger is dangerous and can lead to horrible consequences, most especially what it does to the person that harbors that anger, even if they're justified in being angry. If you were just to take that one life lesson alone, that could change the entire progression of your life. The entire trajectory of your life could change just by embracing that one lesson in their story. And there are so many more. Through this story, we see the devastating effects of unresolved family conflicts, the dangers of taking justice into one's own hands. The story highlights the unconditional love of a parent because, despite Absalom's betrayal, David's grief over his son's death is very profound. And Absalom throughout his life did some really horrible things to David, and David still grieved him. So that shows the unconditional love that parents have for their children, even children that they, admonish or banish. Because at one point, Absalom was even, ejected from the kingdom. He had to live in exile because of his father. But, even that teaches us lessons. The narrative also teaches us about the balance between forgiveness and justice. David eventually forgave Absalom, and his attempt to reconcile with him shows that parent's unconditional love. However, Absalom continued rebellion even after being shown forgiveness. And it demonstrates that sometimes forgiveness can be met with even further wrongdoing. It illustrates the need for wisdom in knowing when to forgive and when to protect oneself from being hurt again. In retrospect, looking at the story, some might have said that it would have been better for David to forgive his son internally, but leave him in exile because of all the damage his son did when he was allowed to return home. That kind of reminds me when I think of this and I look at in the modern day of people that I know that have children battling really severe addictions, and how sometimes if the child is allowed to remain in the home, tragedy ensues, right? And it tears the entire family apart. And that's why so many people are pushed to have the tough love thing where, as long as you're still using, you can't be in the house. And that's to protect everybody else because, how dangerous somebody can be when they are walking through the world in a disordered way. And how even as forgiving Christians, where Jesus says to turn the other cheek and forgive 1,000,000 times, absolutely. But you can forgive and still not leave room for someone to continue hurting you. Being Christian means being loving. It doesn't mean being a doormat, right? And it's really hard to know where that line is. And this story unpacks that fully. By studying stories like this, we learn valuable lessons about human behavior. And we learn about the consequences of our actions, even most importantly, unintended consequences like civil war. When Absalom defended his sister, he wasn't thinking that this was going to lead to civil war. When he started resenting his father, he didn't think that that would turn him into a traitor, but it did. It also teaches us the importance of justice and forgiveness. Most especially for Absalom. Sometimes when people talk about the story, they focus on David's forgiveness of his son. But if Absalom had found a way to forgive his father, so forget, maybe he couldn't bring himself to forgive his brother, right? So that would have happened, maybe that rage or whatever, okay. But if he had never developed that resentment towards his dad, even just that shift in perspective would have prevented a civil war. These stories offer insights that are as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. It's important to remember that the Bible is not just a collection of ancient texts. It's a living document, and it continues to speak to us. It helps us to understand our own lives better and to navigate the complexities of our world with wisdom, discernment, and also compassion. So thank you for joining me on this episode of Faith Focus. I hope this discussion provided you with a bit of a deeper understanding of how to approach the challenging parts of the Bible and the valuable lessons we can learn from them. So don't look at it just as, this is what God tells you to do. Look at it as this is the story of mankind and how God operates through it. Because remember, even in this story, through all the pain and the, betrayal and the civil war, God ultimately restored justice in all of those scenarios. And God fixed the mess that was created by that family disunity. So even the scariest, worst parts of the Bible, you will see time and time and time again how God comes in and makes good from the bad and cleans up a mess. So if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe and share this podcast with others who might benefit from these discussions. Until next time, may your faith be your guiding light.